calling all hardware startup founders and innovators. Welcome to Creations Engineered with Srushty, your go-to podcast where we share valuable insights into building IoT hardware products from successful innovators and founders. Whether you're a hardware enthusiast or a startup founder, we've got something for you. So grab your headphones and let's engineer the future together.
Welcome to this episode, Creations Engineered. And today we have a topic which is more relevant to building a smart device, where we're going to talk about engineering challenges and insights. I welcome all the viewers and especially our first guest in this series of Creation Engineered. We have with us Simon Fabien, who's the founder of Wetflix. Hey Simon, thanks for joining in.
Thank you, Teja. My pleasure.
Great. So let me give a small brief about Simon before we get into it. So Simon carries approximately 33 years of experience in IT, working with industries like banking, hospitality, aviation. And right now he's retired, lastly working with Caribbean Airlines as executive manager. And now with a great vision in his mind and hands, he's just started a couple of years back, a company called Wetflix. And he's right now in a mode of mentoring a lot of startups, innovators, and trying to see how we can make others, entrepreneurs, succeed in the journey of product development activities. And Srushty is proud to be supporting him as one of the technology partners. So that's a brief intro about our special guest and first guest out here in the live. So the first question is, please do share about your journey in the startup, especially about your company Wetflix, and more about it in the next few minutes.
Thanks again, Teja, and hello to everyone who's tuned in. I hope we have a few founders to be and founders in waiting who are tuned in or who will be able to view this at some point and glean some insights. So my journey began, Teja, I would say about 3 years ago. And it happened quite by, I would say almost by accident, when I relocated offices, relocated home from a place where I had regular abundant water supply to a place where there was hardly any water. This is pipe-borne water we're talking about here. And I found myself struggling to manage what little water I had in terms of when I could wash, when is water getting into the tanks, because most people in my country, Trinidad and Tobago, use water tanks. I believe 97% of the domestic households have water tanks because of the state of the infrastructure of pipe-borne water. So I was trying to wrap my head around how to manage my water. When should I wash clothes? I had been listening in the night to hear the water falling into the tanks. And it was like really challenging. Bought a second tank, knocking the tanks. And so the IT in me decided, hey, look, let me just get some technology solution and install it. And that way I can manage better. So I just, went on Amazon to look for a product. And it's then I realized that there were either two things. One, it would be something that's relatively inferior that would contaminate the water because it would make contact with the water, sort of like a pulley, and not very robust. And the other end of the scale, it was the industrial type products that were for heavy use and they were very expensive. So it was prohibitive as a homeowner to invest in that. Usually that's where people would stop. But the entrepreneur in me, the innovator in me, I said, listen, well, let me just make something. Let me create something. So that right there was where the need began. And that's where my journey began as well.
Great to hear that, Simon. Great to see what an inspiration starts with. It just from nowhere, it just brought you out as an innovator to an entrepreneur. Nice to hear that. Moving about in the same line, Simon, I just wanted to understand, this particular incident inspired you to get into the smart water management as you speak by. And can you be a little bit elaborate on what problems are you trying to solve in a bigger picture or a smaller picture? Can you just take us through the journey?
Absolutely. So it began as a personal quest, but then part of it, I started asking friends and family. And eventually, I sent out some surveys on my social platforms to find out really how pervasive this problem is. You grow up and you hear about water problems, but again, because where I was living before, it wasn't an issue for me. So now I set out to find out, to dig deeper, to understand what were the pain points. And I can't say to my surprise, but in line with my expectations, the results of this survey came back. And it certainly was about not knowing when water would be turned on. Some places there was not a schedule for water coming and going. They just had to wait until the utility turned it on. Sometimes they turned it on and the pressure was not enough to fill their tanks. So people would be, struggling, just like I found myself struggling to manage what precious water was in my tanks. Because if I know I have like a quarter tank, I'm not going to go and wash a lot of clothes. I will, ration it. So what we needed was some way to make management of water. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but by extension, conservation of water, something that was easier. And that's where the journey began.
Great. I mean, it's really nice to hear that, Simon, because I'm also from a place where water drought is quite common, and even I feel like this problem is very important across the globe. Though we have a lot of water in the globe, it's how we preserve it and take it to the right usage. I mean, this is really inspiring and nice to hear what you're trying to solve across the globe. Now, I'm sure, Simon, in this journey, what inspired you, what problem you're trying to solve, when you way back started, you would have thought for a moment, how do I go about this? You know, what do I start and things like that. So, what was the toughest moment for you to make this start as an entrepreneur in this product development journey?
Right. So fortunately for me, I had an IT background, but that was not enough because we also need to have some sort of engineering type background. You have to understand water and how the methodology for distribution and consumption of water. So I started learning. I started filling those gaps. I would search YouTube, look at videos, and fortunately, I came across a company in Canada that had invented or developed a circuit board that did capacitance sensing. And they demonstrated it by showing this capacitance circuit on the outside of a mock up tank.
Okay.
And it was able to detect the water level when it got to the sensor without touching the water. And for me, that was a big thing. You are able to detect where the water is without something making contact with the water. And so I reached out to them and we began a discussion. And that's when I started learning about ideation companies because I started getting overloaded with all this information. And I said, I need to sort of get some help. So I had the vision of what I would like to see and what I'd like to build, but I didn't not know the first thing about going about how to do that. And this is where I started the journey with an ideation partner. It was around this time that I met one of your colleagues on LinkedIn. It was quite by accident, and we were chatting for almost a month before we had our first meeting to discuss what Srushty could do for me as a partner. And that opened doors. That opened doors to the journey.
Nice to hear that, Simon. Sometimes you don't know where we start, where we end, but that's a journey of a relationship. Now, in this journey, you spoke about what inspired you, what has really the research which you have done, and you finally found something as a pivotal point for this. Now, when you start bringing all together, when you would have done a lot of research with different ideation companies and a lot of other things, you thought it wasn't right on the track, right? And suddenly you would have felt also something not going really well as per your plan, before getting into the real formal world of ideation. So can you just tell me what were the things you tried to bring together, so that you know that this is what your vision was? How did that gathering of information start, go about?
I'm happy you asked that question because, when I look back at my initial journey and what my thoughts were then, I realized how much I've grown. So back then, my concept was, I have this idea, I need to protect this idea. And whomever I shared with, I need to make sure they sign an NDA. And as a matter of fact, the concept that I was developing was a concept. Remember, we were talking about uh, something that was convenient to look at and manage your water. I built on that idea in terms of the vision. I wanted it also to be affordable because I saw those devices that were very expensive. So it must have been affordable. It must be IT driven, and it must be convenient. So those were some of my those were in the scope of what I was looking for. So in terms of the ideation company and how I was thinking back then, I said, you know what? I would let one company build the hardware, and I'd let a different company write the software because I didn't want the same person to have the two because then they'd have the whole idea and the whole. And I'm smiling now because not only did Srushty convince me to, you know, integrate the solution with them, with you guys, and that happened because the Canada company went under. And that was the first challenge I had because I already pumped resources into that development and that design. And then they went under. But it was a tip here for founders. Everything, even your ideas, they are granular, they're organic. And what you start out with, both in vision and reality, is not what you or not always what you end up with. And so the concept then was to attach sensors along the outside of a tank. And we started designing sensors along that way and sticking them on and connecting them to each other. And that entire concept went out the window because of the impracticality of it, because of the cost of it. And so when that company went under, yes, it was a bit disappointing because I I would have put resources into it, like I said. But more importantly, Trusty was there to support me and really guide me and say, Simon, rest assured, we're not in the business of commercial or retail. We are here to help you with your dreams. We do ideation. So bring the idea, bring the entire package, and we'll build your dream. And I have to say, you have. You did. And I took the chance and I have no complaints, no regrets. So yes, so the point was in terms of the sensors, the entire design had changed. Also, my mindset had changed in terms of having one partner to build the entire integrated solution. So that was some of the ups and downs of the starting it off.
Let's say, if it's great for entrepreneurs when they're starting out, they have some downfalls so that they know what to correct themselves in the real long-term journey. So what would be that top one or two points you would like to share when you're trying to outsource your work? So you share your experience in outsourcing and what kind of typical issues you face versus a outsourcing technology partner or individual freelancers or contractors. So just share your view about your experience with them. Yeah, that'll help us.
I would say the again the journey, it's sometimes a hybrid. So because there are so many moving parts to what you're trying to achieve, even though uh, I had one partner, namely Srushty, working on my hardware, working on my software. I also had administrative uh, tasks. I needed to build a website and so forth. So there's a platform where you can link up with professionals called Fiverr. Most people know about Fiverr, where you go out there, you find a professional, they give you a price up front and they build it out. So I use Fiverr to fill some of the gaps, but the main focus was on my partner in India. Uh, Now, again, because of a startup, uh, I was bootstrapping on the financial side, but I was also looking for investors. You know, there's a saying, the three F's. You begin with the three F's: friends, family, and fools. So I solicited some investment from the three F's. And one in particular said to me, you need to do your due diligence, Simon. You need to go to India, meet the company, meet the people who are building a dream for you. And he said it to me a few times until one day he said, before I invest, you need to visit the team. So I said, okay, fine. I'll visit the team. And so I did. And I was pleasantly surprised with what I met, the friendliness, the warmth, the my eyes were opened more because what I saw was a team that bought into the concept. So by the time I got there, they were already passionate about the prototype and the testing, and the demonstration that they gave me not only blew my mind, but my partner who was with me, he was totally sold. When he went back home, he was only talking about India and how we're going to get this thing done. The team knows what they're doing. And so we also visited the factories while we were there, the factories that would have been responsible for production of the PCB board, assembling all the components, the the housing, the plastic injection molding, the heavy lifting. And I felt a sense of comfort. I said, you know what, we're in good hands. And so that was a big load off my mind. So when I got back to Trinidad, I began to focus more on building the business in terms of all the different components, your finances, your HR, what would be the marketing team like. And so I started thinking up and planning in those areas. And again, I have to say, Teja, the research that I did led me to understand the state of water distribution. And what it said to me was very interesting. And stay with me because there's a point at the end of this. I found out that in our little island, our little country of 1.5 million people, our water utility, they produced something in the region of 280 million gallons of water each day.
Oh,
And, and they distributed that much each day. And they did a study themselves to determine how much is wasted on customers' premises. Now, yes, there are broken lines in the roads and on the highways from time to time where water is gushing out. But this study they did was on customers' premises. So, like, the overflowing tanks or the line that's broken under the ground or the leaky faucet. And they found that they estimated 5% loss each day. That amounted to 14 million gallons of treated water.
big.
Not just free water. This is water that's been treated and the cost of distributing it. So I said, let me extrapolate a bit. How much would that be in a year? And Teja, it turns out that that's 5 billion gallons of water.
It's huge.
It's amazing. 5 billion gallons of water can supply 2/3 of our population for an entire year. And that is how much water we are losing in our country. And this is it brings me to the point I'm going to make about being a founder and being an entrepreneur, being a visionary. I began to realize my purpose because I coming up on retirement, I wanted to give back some way, and I was always trying to find my purpose. And then I realized, conserving this water, finding ways to help people conserve will redound to really a corporate social responsible thing to do. This would not be about revenue or commercial. This is about doing the right thing. And if for 56 years my utility could not perfect saving water, then I something I could do. And so therefore I settled on a purpose. And that purpose is about conservation of water. And when I built out the company and the branding, I wanted it to be at the forefront of everyone's mind. When they think of Wetflix, they think of conservation of water. And I think that's very important for a founder to lock in on a purpose.
Wonderful, Simon. I mean, that's really important. Getting yourself into the boots of entrepreneurship and driving a vision which is really important to the globe or the world matters a lot. I think you are choosing one of the forefront, nothing but water. That's important as to any human being in the world. Really inspiring to see how you have taken things across in the last couple of years journey and see how you have done a lot in the thing. I was a little curious in this particular aspect, Simon. So, how do you evaluate an outsourcing partner? I mean, what is that you express yourself and tell the upcoming entrepreneur? What is that you evaluate in an outsourcing partner? Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it begins with the point that you can't do it yourself. Most times, an entrepreneur comes up with an idea or a vision. It may not even necessarily be in their discipline that they've studied or their profession. I was in IT, but I was not in industrial engineering. I was not in water conservation. And so it was organic, but you had to find the right partner. I was lucky because having met the team from Srushty, and they bought into that vision from very early. So it did not take a lot of effort to keep focusing. They were self-driven. They shared the vision. They were passionate about the vision. As a matter of fact, when I have my meetings with your software team, they're so excited and tuned in to what we're doing. I have to get them to Trinidad. They have to visit to see what their hands have created and to see the journey unfolding. So, one, you must recognize the need to have someone support you, someone who has the skill sets that you may not have. You bring the vision, but you need a team to execute. Then you need to select the right team. Now, I started with the Canada company. That didn't work out. So because that vision was so powerful in terms of that need to pursue conservation, and it was not just like a business idea. So, okay, it didn't work and it's the end there. No. And this is why, again, I will drive home the point that it's important to find a purpose. Because when there's a purpose and you focus on down the road, the pitfalls you meet daily, you can go over them and continue going. So, and there will be pitfalls, but you know what? You keep going because you believe in the vision, and you're gonna get there.
Wonderful, Simon. Got it. Point noted. And especially, I would like to know, of course, technology partners help you in a lot of things like designing and within prototyping and things like that. Uh, what did you vision, about manufacturing and taking the production line and things like that? Was your vision at the initial stage or in the midway of the journey, and what is that change to right now, and what is your focus point in manufacturing? How are you trying to rope in that?
So at the beginning, I was just seeing, my model was simply to have a device that is tech driven, that's affordable to everyone, and that's convenient, that would collect data on the water levels in your tank and send it into a cloud database from which you can use your mobile device to access, whether it's a laptop, your tablet, your mobile phone. I think of someone who's going to work in the city and it's almost afternoon, they're ready to go home, but they don't know if water came. They don't know if they can go home and wash, or if they should just stay in the town and go to the gym. And having my solution, they could just go on their IoT, connect to the app, they would see whether they have water in their tanks now or not. As a matter of fact, we can push a notification to them telling them that water is coming. So they could go home and they know there's water to wash. That was the kind of vision, so something simple, something affordable to the masses. And I'll put a pin here. Our vision is a very simple vision. And it's not one of those visions where you have it up on the wall and none of the employees know what it is because it's a whole paragraph, vision and mission. No, I'm practical. I believe it should be practical. So our vision is to be a vehicle for the empowerment of the people. That's Wetflix vision.
Got it.
So that was the idea. So that was the big picture thinking. Again, had no idea about production, no idea about the logistics or the manufacturing process. I had to learn that. And again, the visit to India helped me, it taught me a lot. So when I began to realize about the nuts and bolts of manufacturing, I started getting into, for example, something as simple as the tool that's required to forge the device. The cost of that tool, it's not cheap. It's something that established companies would do, companies that are in existence for a while. For a startup, one would need to try to get a grant or to really raise some serious funding or to be able to sell your vision so well and bring people on board with your passion that they will support it and they'll finance it because it's not a cheap thing. But I didn't let that cost stop me from the final vision. So we continued to learn about MOQs and all the different component pricing. And
Supply chain.
yeah, some of my meetings, we were talking about the electrical definitions for the circuit, the parts of the board, the sensors. We were choosing sensors, we were choosing, solar panels, working out the voltages and the length of time before it discharges. And it was exciting. And it opened my eyes. I learned a lot more. And so I'm now conversant with the product. I'm happy with what we came up with because it does satisfy the rudiments of what I was looking for. Affordable to the masses, and that's in line with our vision to be a vehicle for the empowerment of the people. Tech driven, because I understand tech, and I think we all know that's the future. A matter of fact, that's our present. We're in the next big wave, the next big evolution. I say to people, and I think we all agree, that AI, the onset of AI, is as big as when the internet began, if not bigger. So we have to embrace technology if we want to be efficient, if we want to lower costs, and if we want to improve our margins, then we must include technology in what we do. So tech driven, affordable to the masses, and convenient. And we were able to stay on track with that vision as we got the prototype. So
All right.
that's in a nutshell.
Great. I think that journey helps you, also to choose the right manufacturing partners to, bring the idea to a mass level and help out the mass people out there. I mean, that's a journey which you have felt it. It was really nice to hear that. So Simon, what would be your advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, who just started in the space of product development, have some ideas in their brain? What would be your advice to those aspiring entrepreneurs?
Call Srushty. Actually, I would say read, start to find out more about that particular industry that you have a vision about. Learn as much as you can. Try to speak to people around you, because I passionately believe it also begins with solving a problem. You're not going to have a vision about a pair of glasses and expect to change the world with it. They already have tons and tons of glasses out there. So innovate, create, build your knowledge about what it is you have this vision of, and ask yourself some questions. Is this something that will solve a problem? That's one of the biggest questions you ask yourself. Will this solve a problem? And once you believe you can solve a problem, this is something that has a niche of its own, or whether you want to market it differently, then continue to pursue it. And don't worry too much about the gaps. Don't worry too much about the small stuff, because the small stuff is what has prevented millions of people from taking that first step, from stepping out of the box. Sometimes you need to go after you've done your initial assessment. You know you're going to solve a problem. You know you're going to do something different, or you have a marketing plan. Close your eyes and make that step. Go
Very
where the
rightly
money
said. Great to see your advice to the aspiring entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs out there, Simon. So, before we just take the closure, I would like to have some questions from the audience. I think we have one more question there, Simon. Let's see if you can answer that. What is that decision-making process do you think they should do to choose a vendor?
Right. It's a good question, because what I was presented with was, I went global because in my country I wasn't aware of there being any ideation companies. I didn't even know about ideation when I set off on my journey, but when I began doing my research and I realized they existed, the next thing I looked for was the cost. Being a startup, obviously that would be one of my primary concerns. What would it cost? Because not only was I looking offshoring, I was looking at the value of my dollar compared to like the US or the Canadian, where it's like $7 of my dollars for $1 of their dollars. So cost would be a big factor. Also, you want a partner who understands your vision, because remember, you coming with an idea, that's all. You coming with an idea in your head. I actually saw in my mind's eye what my sensor would look like. And by the time we were finished, it was close to what I had dreamt, but it was functional. So yes, we made a couple changes along the way, but for the most part, that vision became a reality, and that's what kept it unique. So I have to say that the partner I chose was successful in getting me to see my vision from just a dream into a physical device that I can hold and look at and admire. So coming back to the choice, cost, right? Also, make sure they understand your vision and your dream. Let them tell it back to you. Meet with them as often as you need to meet with them to be comfortable that you're in bed with the right partner. And that is so important.
Nice to hear that answer to Simon. Now, I think one more audience have one more question is like, you know, how do his question is like, how do I know if the product idea that I have can be created into a product? His question is more like, what is that? What is the different kind of validation he has to do if his idea is really worth to convert into a product? Um, how do you go about that?
Well, I can think of two components of that question. The first one is, would people use it, like it, want it? If you do create it, and for that, you need to start talking to friends, family, talk to people who are close to you, talk to strangers. I remember I was going on a boat ride with my son, and the guy who took us, I didn't know him before we rented this boat. And I started asking him about how many water tanks he has. And if he think it's a good idea to have some way of knowing it without telling him what I was thinking. And he actually started saying, yeah, if we had that, that would be so fantastic. So have conversations with people so that you can do like a mental proof of concept. And so that's the first component. Will people want it? Will it solve a problem? It mustn't be a nice to have, it must be a need to have. And the second component of that is, can we build it the way you're thinking of it? So if you're thinking of maybe a glasses, coming back to the glasses analogy, that has no arms, it just hangs in front of your eye by some gyroscopic or some gravity defying way, can that be built? So then that's when your conversation with your ideation team, because they come on board with industrial engineers, electrical engineers, software developers. So they will sit around the table with you and start to hammer out what can be done and what may not be done. And trust me, I pushed the team. I remember sitting with them one day and challenging them to build this device for a certain price point. I said, we're not going to go beyond this price point because part of the vision is that this must be affordable to the average man. I'm not coming to
Sure.
market with a product that people can't afford. What's the sense? So be true to your vision. Make sure you find out, you have conversations with people. If you have a lot of a big enough network, do some surveys about the idea in terms of how your feedback, get your feedback. And then also when you begin to talk to your ideation companies, find out physically if this can be done. So those are the two components of that question that I think you should look at.
Great to hear from you, Simon. I think the audience will be strong enough to get that. I think that's all about the questions from the audience. Nice to hear different questions from different. I think they're also aspiring entrepreneurs soon. We might not know it. So, Simon, in this journey, of course, ideations companies, manufacturing, everything has come by, and as a vision to sell this product in the market, you would have thought about certain compliances like C certification, EMIMC, and things like that. What is it that your product tries to be certified with, and what are the steps you have taken to get this certified? Any answers to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So your certification requirements will depend on what your product is. Replacing a device that is solar powered, Wi-Fi enabled, and is running with a LiDAR sensor about the size of an orange, well, a grapefruit, on top of tanks in a tropical climate. So we will have extremes of heat, we'll have extremes of uh, hurricane type, gale force winds sometimes, lots of rain. So extremes temperature. We had to go, the very first thing we spoke about was our IP56 rating for being waterproof. So again, it's based on what you're building, you will determine the type of certification you need. So what we decided to do, because for each certification, there's a cost, of course. We started with the crucial one because what your certification does for you is it builds your customer confidence and it builds your regulatory compliance as well. So certification is important. is based on the product that you're developing. So for us, IP rating was very important. And then we'd start going into the other areas. We'd look at the UL, we'd look at all the other ISO requirements and roll them out as we go progressively.
Great. Nice to hear that companies have complete end-to-end, thought of right from ideation to certification. So it's a journey where niche entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs should be aware of it. It's not like only ideation to product. It's also a matter of certifications, which is important to go into the market. So I think it was really nice talking to you, Simon. I mean, I think there are no more questions from the audience, and I think this was really a great chat with you and understand your journey, inspiration, which started 2 years back. I still remember that, with one of my colleagues you started, and it was Vijay, and right from Vijay to me, and then a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Teja, and take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Simon. See you guys. See you soon in one more episode of Creations Engineered. And in case you guys want to talk about anything in product development, IoT, software, you're more than welcome to bounce into my website or leave me a LinkedIn chat and we can discuss about it.